because they ground us, and they take something that's inconceivably complex, the world around us, and they make it something comprehensible.
I was quite horrified. I'd never seen anything in such poor condition, and it was something that I thought wouldn't be worked on. It was so badly deteriorated.
And one afternoon a gentleman turned up with a poly bag, kind of balled up, and said that he'd found this map and he thought we would be interested in it. Apparently he had found the map during some renovations on a house in Aberdeen, and he was keen that we would have a further look at it. The map was originally made, we think, probably actually in London, although it was based on a Dutch wall map. George Wilde, a London mapmaker, regularly reused, would be the polite term, other people's mapping, and we think that this particular wall map was based on an 8-sheet wall map made by Schenk and Valk in Amsterdam. But Wilde took the map and enhanced it by putting views of various towns down the sides.
Never have I worked on anything quite so bad as this. I've worked on a lot of really special projects, but I think they've all been leading up to this one. I just had to be so careful because it was so delicate and there was so many pieces to it. It was so fragmented, it was just like confetti.
Stuffed up a chimney. We assume from the ball shape that it had been used probably to stop a draft. There is a sort of more fun theory perhaps that it had been stowed away because it showed William and Mary, and that it was the wrong kind of religious sympathisers had shoved the map out of the way. But in reality it was probably just to stop the very cold wind coming through the chimney. At that period, maps were largely symbols of power. They were very expensive to make, and they were even more expensive relatively for people to buy. And something like this that was a 8-sheet map would have needed a lot of space to be stored. So it was clearly originally purchased by somebody who wanted to demonstrate in some way that power. All maps are fiction. What goes into the map is selected by the cartographer, which means that some things have to be left out. So as a user, when you're coming to the map, there's a certain element of selection done by the user as well, so that you're choosing the bits that you want to see, the bits that you want to use. Inevitably there are spaces within the map, and it's those spaces that allow us to act on it and put our own imagination into the map. So what does the map really say about the map maker, its owner and its times? William and Mary have a central position in the map, so we've narrowed it down to round about 1690 because that was in the middle of their reign. William III of the Dutch Republic of the United Provinces has just become king of England, Ireland and Scotland. Scotland is not an isolated country. The North Sea is seen as a bridge and not as a barrier. There's a huge trade in staples, wool, coal and salt. Merchants, soldiers and students flow between Scotland and Europe, exchanging ideas, of science, religion and culture. The Scots were also expanding trade with Africa and the Americas, particularly the slave trade.
By naming new countries, new towns, you sort of claim and you say, right, this is mine, I've explored this, I've discovered it, it is therefore mine. And by seeing that back onto a map is of course very, very telling. On this map there are a number of sea battles, and the Dutch are very, very good at forcing their way into new areas. So there are large sea battles in the Indian Ocean, and we know that the Dutch battled with the Portuguese, with Chinese merchants as well. They in many ways ruled the waves long before Britannia does. Spain is known to be responsible for large massacres where indigenous populations in South America are concerned. There are attempts at enslaving them, and they put them to work in gold, silver mines, etc. And the Dutch see the way that the indigenous populations suffer at the hands of the Spanish. They too suffer or have suffered at the hands of Spain. They too have been enslaved by these evil Catholics. And that so-called black legend, the abuses of Spain in South and Central America become very, very famous throughout Europe.
If the map was handed in today in this kind of state, I don't think that I would take it. I'm very aware of the work that my conservation colleagues do in making things available, and I think I would have looked at this and thought that it was simply beyond their scope.
That map will now be preserved for centuries more. There may be scholars in 500 years' time, when a whole new understanding of 17th century Holland has evolved from other things that we can't even imagine now, we will want to have access to that map. And so, unless we hold on to these things and use our skills and talents to preserve them, then we're really betraying the future generations who might want to learn something from them.
The story of William and the Scots is a very, very problematic one. Prior to William coming over and becoming King of Scotland, there are a number of Scots that very much think that William is going to be their Protestant hero. James VII is increasingly problematic politically, religiously, legally, and the result is that, especially in Scotland, a number of people flee, and a lot of those exiles end up in the Netherlands and sort of find themselves looking towards William. And when William then becomes king, there is great expectations that is very, very, very quickly crushed. The Scots think that having a Calvinist ruler is going to give them the religious desires that they have, and it turns out that William is simply not interested in Scotland at all, and he becomes a deep, deep, deep disappointment for the Scots very quickly onwards. In a couple of years the love affair is completely gone, and what adds further insult to injury is the so-called massacre of Glencoe, in which William is very much implicated as having played a part. William receives very, very bad propaganda and is very, very quickly considered a disaster for Scotland. it throws up more questions than it can answer, and it will be wonderful if people would want to do more research on this map and its story. I think that that's what's important. It's the story more so than the actual map itself.